that your brain controls all aspects of performance. No matter how strong you are, no matter how well you feel prepared, ultimately what's going to allow for that coordination and for that special edge on game day is going to be how your brain connects with all the movements that it controls in your body. In the case of vision, most sports rely very heavily on visual agility. This slide just highlights the point that a good part of your brain is devoted to vision. And a good part of the brain, of course, is devoted to motor control and also to somatosensory perception. But the point is that your whole brain is just devoted to your ability to see that ball or hit the ball, run down and avoid other players and such. And so we're going to try to understand what can we do to enhance this connection between your brain and athletic performance. Here's one of my favorite demonstrations because it's kind of a fun puzzle. There is a very common object here that's broken up into little pieces, and it's copied around on the screen several different times. Okay, and your task is to try to figure out what that figure is. Okay, and of course it's hard. No one is able to do this, so I'm going to make it a little easier. It's actually a letter of the alphabet. So you have 1 out of 26 chance to figure out what letter is being copied on the screen, but broken up into little pieces. And you can't see it, right? If you think you know what letter it is, let me know, but it's a hard task. But I can make it tremendously easy for you by doing this. Okay, now what letter of the alphabet is that? It's a B, right? So you couldn't see it without the occluders. But once I put a little more visual information, which is I'm not actually making the B's for you, I'm just putting in cover so that your brain can now fill in what's behind it. Before you didn't know what connected to what, but if I give you this, what we call occluding information, your brain can almost instantly fill in what's behind it. This is what allows you to see three-dimensional. This is what allows you to infer players behind other players in these team sports and such. Your brain is doing this every single millisecond, and it does it super well and super quickly. Most of the time, you're working with this kind of information coming in your brain, but if you have cues and clues, you can do things really rapidly and very easily. Okay, so now let's move on to performance and what psychology may have to say about performance. And I'll just send a couple of tips down on the screen, and we'll give examples of each. I think one of the most important things that, as a scientist, I can share with those, with the practitioners out there, is that, as they said, how you see the world is important, how you set your mind is important. And so we need to figure out how can we best set your mind to a task. And a classic example is like making free throws in a basketball game. No one's trying to block you. No one's trying to shove into you in the net. Something you can practice in a fixed situation. And yet, of course, you love it when you have all these fans, waving stuff in the back to distract you and all that. And you want to learn how to ignore all that. And the question is here is this: what can you do to set your mind properly so that you execute what you've trained to execute? Such as throwing a free throw. Classic example, of course, is putting. In golf, yes, there are variants in the terrain. This is probably the only sport that I'm personally good at, so I use a lot of golf examples. But also, it's easy to study. Scientifically, it's easy to study golf because, it's the ball in the hole. You just need to put it in the hole. But this is a pretty fixed situation, and yet millions of dollars and, glory rests on your ability to put that ball in a hole that's only 3 feet away or not. And the question is, why do some players totally choke in this task? It's all about mindset. They clearly have the skills. There's nothing you're going to do in the morning to enhance your skills in putting or hitting a drive down the field or throwing a free throw. What is it at the moment of execution that allows you to do this task well and with high reliability? Here's one thing that relates to perception and performance, which is that those players who do well, who are, like, for instance, having a good day and carrying the ball into the hole better than others, they actually see the hole as being bigger than those players who are not playing well. And the way they do this task is they took a bunch of golfers walking off the golf course, and then they just had them, how big is the golf hole? They just gave them a whole bunch of examples, on a poster, at the end of the golf game, and just said, in your mind, how big is that golf hole? The one that you've been playing with, for this entire round. And what they show here is that those who score better, in the case of golf, lower is better, will perceive the golf ball to be larger than those who play more poorly. You know, obviously the golf ball is not changing, but how your confidence and how you see the golf ball has a correlation with how well you're playing that thing. And so this again shows the intricate relationship between performance and perception, how you see things. All right, and so this is probably, and some of you may have seen this from IntroPsych. This is one of the most important graphs that we have in psychology to share with you, is that, yes, the degree of arousal is on the x-axis over here. So, you know, compared to no arousal, some arousal is good. Y-axis is performance. Performance does go up with some increased arousal. But if you have too much arousal, then performance will start to drop down again. That's kind of the key point of the graph. And it's really only notable for difficult tasks. So for a very easy task, you know, yes, more arousal is good. But for most sports, these are all very challenging activities. Most sports fall in the red line zone, and all studies show that the more aroused you are, the worse you're going to perform. So, the goal of coaches and trainers should be to put people in this zone over here, especially on game day, and don't let people fall into this zone. That's when people start to choke.